today's topic is all about our planet Earth. Now, this really excited me because I love nature and the diverse beauty of our planet. And I thought, wow, I get to talk about this. And I thought about, I've lived all over the country. I've lived in the flat farmlands, the mountains, the tropical desert, and even the rainforest. And it's all in the United States. And I know you're probably thinking, where is the rainforest in the United States? Well, there's an area near the Appalachian Mountains, and Pisgah National Forest near Asheville, North Carolina is considered temperate rainforest. It's not a full-fledged rainforest like in Puerto Rico or the Amazon, because it still has seasons, but it really does rain enough for the title. And there are, I was told, like over 800 varieties of trees just in that area. The thing is, in all these areas, each one of them, it has its own beauty. The plants and the flowers and the grasses native to each system are amazing. And they all work together to support life in their area. Each ecosystem is balanced to the conditions of their area. The heat, the cold, the sunlight, the availability of water, they all work together to expand life. And each one left on its own allows life to thrive. And this is God's plan. That creative spark of life evolves to thrive in each and every environment. There is this balance that allows life to flourish. And this balance is maintained by the interdependence of all life. I remember several years ago, I read about the impact of reintroducing wolves to Yellowstone National Park. In the article, it told that in the mid-1920s, the gray wolf was exterminated from the park due to what I'm going to call misguided predator control efforts. They thought they were doing something good, but it actually led to some pretty devastating changes in the park over the next 70 years. The elk herds, which had been kept at a manageable size with their natural predators, the wolves, they ballooned. They overgrazed the land and they ate up the willow and aspen trees. So the valleys had less grass and plant cover. Because the elk could stay in one place longer, they munched on the trees, so the trees weren't growing. So there were fewer trees, fewer birds, and no food or lumber for the beavers because they really like those willow trees. So with fewer beavers, there were no dams on the streams, so those eroded and became deeper and narrower. And the narrower streams made it harder for the willows to grow. So you've got this continual cycle of decline. No willow trees, no beavers, no willow trees. The water is getting smaller. The land is being devastated, gobbled up by this increase in the elk population. So the land was looking a little barren, and a lot of the wildlife was gone. Not just the beavers and the birds, all those little critters that counted on that ecosystem, the grasslands and the plants, they were gone. So in 1995, they reintroduced the wolves to the park. And over the next 20 years, the whole ecosystem shifted. It didn't restore everything, but The willow trees and the aspen trees that were only knee-high in 1994 are now strong, tall forests. The birds are back. The beavers are back. The elk herds are under control. With this natural predator, they are roaming more, so they're not gobbling up all the vegetation. They're not staying in one place long enough to decimate the trees. The park is abundant with wildlife again. And granted, some areas may never be what they were. The willow trees aren't returning in some of the areas because the streams changed directions while the wolves were gone. But the park is thriving. And through this experience, I think we've learned that you can't eliminate a species from an area without consequences. I think this allows us to see this greater connection with all that is, and that every piece is important to the balance. We have to recognize the perfection of what God has created. Each area is created with love and forethought. It's set in a balance where life can thrive. This whole planet is an expression of God, created to experience life on all levels. So as long as we see ourselves as separate from the planet, we won't recognize that one. We're going to continue to make choices that can ultimately threaten our existence. In our teaching, we have a declaration of what we believe. And the very first statement is, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. This one manifests itself in and through all creation. Just as we know that we're expressions of God, so is our planet. Every rock, every creature, even the atmosphere and beyond, everything is an expression of God. And this planet Earth is just as complex and amazing as our own bodies, and just as important to our experience of life. It's important for the expression of God, but it's also so important for us as we express His life. Now, as expressions of God, we're not separate from the earth. We are not separate from the planets and animals, and we're not separate from the air we breathe, the water we drink, or the soil we walk on. This really hit home for me this week, because it's easy to know that you and I are one, that we're individualized expressions of the one, and God lives in each and every one of us. So we are connected, we're life expressing. I didn't have the same understanding of my relationship to the earth. I mean, I've always had an appreciation for the beauty of this planet, but I miss that little piece that sees it as part of me, part of that God piece in me. For some reason, I just didn't fully get that the grass is God and the bush in my backyard is God. I knew they were created by God, but it didn't register as expressions of God, and that as expressions of God, They're part of me. For me, this is just a new way of looking at the planet, and it takes me back to our first core concept of oneness. God is a source of all that is, and God is all that is. Everything is made of the God substance and is a unique expression of God. We, people and every part of this planet Earth, we may be different, expressed differently, but we're all one in God. Our oneness with God is absolute. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that separates us from God or from each other or from this planet. And just like you and me, the illusion of separateness with the earth is in its unique expression as God. I look out and I see it as separate because it doesn't look like me, but it's still part of me. It's still me as God expressing that oneness is in everything. It is everything. Oneness it's a great intellectual concept, but how can we recognize it in our life? How do we recognize that knowing and feeling of oneness with each other, with the planet? It starts with that knowing and feeling of oneness with the divine. At the heart level, oneness is a feeling of interconnectedness where there are no boundaries or dividers. I think most people feel an intense heart opening, and it brings an awareness of the basic goodness of all things. We see beauty everywhere, in everything and everyone. Oneness, being in that space of love and connection with God in all things, it brings out our natural wisdom, and it makes it easier to see what matters in life and what doesn't. What is important and what's just something that happens. I feel like when I'm in that connected space and knowing that oneness, it also brings this sense of worthiness and belonging. I feel more love and appreciation and peace. It's really a profound experience. Deep and loving, connected place of being. Profound doesn't mean you have to have a near-death experience or any out of the ordinary event. This beautiful state of mind, of being, can happen anytime. Experience of oneness, they often happen when we're alone and we're meditating. And I found that for me, a lot of times that feeling occurs in nature. This is one of the greatest blessings from our planet. A space to fully connect with the divine, feel that presence in everything, because we're surrounded by that beauty. Glenn Albright describes oneness with nature as a feeling where the boundaries between the self and the rest of nature are obliterated, and a deep sense of peace and connectedness pervade consciousness. There is just something about nature, about this planet Earth and all that, the bounty of this planet, that invites us to open our hearts to the moment and let that peace and connectedness in. In nature, that oneness can be awe and inspiring. We can look at the stars and feel the significance of life, or maybe feel that insignificance in that bigger picture. But it's still that connection. Some people have described it as a burst of love, gratitude, and interconnectedness when you're just sitting with your friends. It can happen in a silent, sudden awareness that others have the same dreams and heartaches that we have. This oneness can be a feeling of being in complete harmony with the world. It's a sense that everything is linked, that everything we are touches everything on this planet. We're one with all that is. And it can also be as simple as just that deep knowing that everything's going to be okay. Everything is working for our good. I think we've all had random, those unexpected glimpses of oneness, moments of oneness. And maybe for you, it's one of the ways I shared, or maybe it's like just watching a beautiful sunset and having that moment when you felt like you merged with the whole of creation. And we even have expressions for these moments of, we say, oh, it took my breath away, or time stood still. This is oneness. This is that place out of time that's pure love. And when we return from one of these moments of oneness, sometimes we can't really find the words to express what we felt. It's just that wonderful feeling of peace and connection. It just was. In Hindu philosophy, they call it tat, which means that. Just that. And I want you to remember that it can happen at any time. If you feel your mind and heart opening, let it happen. Feelings of oneness and connection are expansive. And the more alert you are to noticing oneness in your daily life, in new scenarios, the more you're going to experience it. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "We are here to awaken from the illusion of separateness." The more we feel oneness, the more we experience that feeling of oneness, that knowing of oneness, the easier it's going to be to let go of this illusion of separateness. We know that we're all one. We're all here as expressions of God. What better way to bring about this feeling of oneness, to feel that connection, than in caring for Mother Earth? I love this quote from Reverend Scott Aubrey. He says, "In caring for the earth, I feel her love for me as I live, move, and be still in my favorite places. I feel the delight of the landscape, my home, the paths I walk. This is sacred expression. I abide in this love story with reverence and gratitude, and I love as I am loved." When we take delight in our sacred spaces, we automatically care for the earth. I know that I tidy up my favorite places without a second thought because I want to continue to enjoy them. I gravitate to those places because I can feel that connection. I can see that beauty. I appreciate the magnificence of Earth. It's great that we have Earth Day to remind us to care for the earth, but we don't need to wait for a special day. I saw this story about this man named Jadav Kayang, and he's in Kokilamak, India. He transformed this landscape that had been devastated by erosion. It was just a sore spot. But he transformed it into 1,360 acres of forest. one tree at a time. Yadav planted a tree every day, every single day for 40 years. And now this man-made forest is bigger than Central Park. Hundreds of elephants, rhinos, boars, reptiles and birds, they now live in this incredible forest. And he's planning to plant trees until his last breath. I love what he said about this. He said, nature is God. It gives me inspiration. It gives me power. As long as it survives, I survive. Isn't that a beautiful description? I mean, nature is God. It gives me inspiration. It gives me power. I think about it and I see myself looking at the great sequoia trees and I can feel its strength. That strength of nature. I've taken its strength as my own. And his comment that as long as nature survives, I survive. This is my heart into nature. I'll always be here because I am part of that oneness, God. And so we need to care for our planet. I think the best place to start is to recognize that we're one with it, that it's part of us. And in that, we're wanting to take care of it. And we have this intention to support Mother Earth. When we have it, that intention, that commitment to support this additional piece of life that's our lives, all kinds of ideas come to us. This is the creative process of the universe. When we set our intention, the universe supports us, gives us ideas, finds ways that we can fulfill it. So I want to encourage you to set this intention to care for our Mother Earth, because as we care for her, we care for ourselves. And then pay attention as the ideas and opportunities for service come into your awareness. There are a myriad of ways to make a difference in the world. And I know as God contacts us, as these ideas come, they're going to start with what we love and what we care about. So if you love wood and the woods and open spaces, maybe a conservation group will come up on one of your social media feeds, and then you'll see how you can support them. A simple thing is like, if you're up in arms about gasoline prices, make your trips more efficient. Use less gas. Plan your route. It helps your wallet. It decreases carbon emissions. It helps the earth. And it's okay that it benefits you. The good for me is the good for the planet. The good for the planet is the good for me. It's not about sacrificing or shifting our whole life purpose. It's about being aware and taking the steps that we're inspired to take to support the life that is around us, to support our life and our planet. Remember, it's all God and it's all life. All is God and all is life. Everything we do to and for our planet, we do to and for ourselves. And vice versa. What we do for ourselves, we do for our planet, because we're expanding that love. Find time to be in nature and appreciate the beauty of our planet. The more we appreciate the beauty of planet Earth in all its varied expressions, the more beautiful it will be. The more loving we are, the more life will express. We have the power to keep this planet thriving. I'd like to close with this quote from John O'Donohue. It's a little food for thought. It's just a little different take. So he says, "It never occurs to us to wonder how the earth sees us. Is it not possible that a place could have affection for those who dwell there? Perhaps your place loves having you there. It misses you, and in its secret way rejoices when you return. Could it be possible that a landscape might have a deep friendship with you? It could sense your presence and feel the care you extend towards it. Perhaps your favorite place feels proud of you. And I would add, perhaps your favorite place loves you as much as you